Hello and welcome everyone to the North American Ag Roundtable. And this is a great demo and discussion about biochar. And I want to introduce you to a couple of people. This is James Gaspard. He's from Biochar now in Colorado, and Gary Walker. Gary Walker is the owner of GAPS Ontario, and he bridges the gap between technology and clean water. And Gary, over the last few years, I've got to work with him quite a bit, and we've become pretty good buddies. So I'm really excited for his talk today, and we'll get started. You're on mute. There we go.
I guess that tells you how much experience I've had with this. Thank you, Chrissy. I appreciate the kind words you have. I guess I should introduce you to who I am and where I've been. I live on a farm. I was raised on a dairy farm, southwestern Ontario, northwest of London. I retired from Bell Canada. For those of you out there who have a dislike for Bell, please don't hold that against me. I knew enough to get out. I have been the safety supervisor for a construction company. I was the general manager for an erosion company. And in 2018, I decided that I would do a company that, as Chrissy said, bridges the gaps between R&D and the end users. GA phosphorus, I like to call it GAPS. So the company right now runs, or did before this COVID stuff hit. Thank goodness we're on the upswing, and thanks to Chrissy for doing some of these unconventional things for me that I'm not used to. But I'm very much looking forward to the results I may have. So 7 different projects. So I need to tell you a little story, and I'm a bit of a storyteller, and it won't be nasty, Chrissy. I'll keep it nice and quiet and clean. I spoke at a conference, and I quickly realized, that was the last one, I quickly realized that I didn't have anything in front of my name. I was the only one. So I decided to tell them I was Mr. Gary Walker, and that was because they didn't know me. So Gary is who I am. That's the only initials I have in front of my name. The only thing I have behind my name is, I got it from the School of Hard Knocks, and it's CS, standing for common sense. I knew right then that after that conference, I needed to create a company with a toolbox. My grandfather and my father had old tractors. This is off my grandpa Moe's tractor. As you can see, the toolbox isn't very big on the tractors. Thank goodness today's toolbox is large with social media, etc. It carried a 1/2 a 9/16 wrench, double-ended, probably a 3/4 inch wrench. Wasn't big enough for a 15/16. Carried a vice grips, hammer, adjustable. Pretty much done the work. I realized that my company needed to create a toolbox for folks that want to get involved in clean water. We don't have a magic wand, but my toolbox has got lots of stuff in the toolbox that can help many, many issues. One of my products in the toolbox just happens to be Biochar now. And when I use a product, when I put it in my toolbox, I want to make sure that this product is usable and gets results. So without proof, it doesn't go in my toolbox. And at this point in time, I'd like to bring on James to talk about Biochar now, because he's been very instrumental in putting a tool in my box that is becoming very, very good. James, thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Chrissy. I guess just you want me to click the share screen, Chrissy?
Yep.
All right. All right. As Gary said, my company is Biochar now. We've been around for about 11 years making biochar. We make an extremely high quality biochar. We're located in Colorado in the US. We're in expansion mode now. We will be putting sites in Ontario and other parts of Canada. We are also putting sites in Australia and Malaysia and Indonesia. So wherever there's a need to create a high quality biochar, that's where we're headed. We have a lot of different uses, but I'll focus on this one, on cleaning water and also the ag part of it. But the one thing I need to explain is if you Google biochar, you'll find like over 1 million hits. Okay. And I'm speaking about our company now. We're the only biochar company in the industry that's actually formally approved by the US EPA to produce the product and release it into the environment in unrestricted use. So when you are dealing in biochar, I just have to ask you, please, if you're not buying from Gary, test your product, because you'll see the differences. A lot of people out there biochar has some very loose definitions in this world. Let's just put it that way. And what we're making is a high quality carbon. In fact, here's a photo. We make it out of wood. This photo, what we mostly make it out of right now is beetle kill trees from the national forests in the US. So we like to use the dead trees. That way we're removing the dead trees out of the forest that would have rotted away and put the carbon back in the air. And we convert it into our high quality carbon, which has a half-life of over 17,000 years, according to the government labs. So we're basically breaking the carbon cycle. We get carbon credits for what we do, and it, basically makes something useful. Now, 1 tablespoon of this material, of our material, will have over 400 square meters of surface. And what's important about our product is for this conversation, we bind nutrients. So you'll see here, we actually bind 99% of the phosphorus we come in contact with. We actually have a patent on this in the US because most things can't bind phosphorus. So you basically put it in the water, you allow the water to come in contact with it, and we bind the nutrients. And then we also bind solids, clean up the water, and we bind the nitrates as well. But we also hold over 5 times our weight in water, because once that's going to allow us to use it in ag, and I'll explain that more in a second. We also bind up heavy metals and nasty stuff. So if you've got a lead mine or something, or aluminum mine or copper, you can use us to filter the water coming off of the mine site, and we'll remove all the heavy metals out of that water. Not listed on this chart, but where we're used is we're used by DuPont to clean up mercury out of rivers in the US where they have mercury issues. Their testing demonstrates we were 5 times more effective at binding mercury than any other carbon they could find. We also can bind PCBs, dioxins. We just got testing done at Stanford University where we picked up PFASs, that's a new problem in the US. It's, with all these chemicals now, it's in firefighting foam, and it's a new hot thing to try to clean up. But we bind the PFAS, we bind pharmaceuticals. So we bind things that need to be taken out of water as well, to make it healthy again. It's just a simple illustration here of where basically as the char is in the water, we'll bind the nutrient molecules, which will stop the algae blooms. And Gary will speak to that in a moment from his experience. But we've cleaned up hundreds of lakes in the US, and we're being used now, and we're being proposed now in massive projects in the US. Then we also, as I said, we hold 5.6 times our weight in water. And where this is important is, like here's some plants, some testing that was done in high altitude mines in Colorado. The issue up there is after the land's disturbed, people trying to get something to grow. Well, at that altitude, there's no moisture. So what little moisture there is needs to be retained. So they put our char into the soil in a small concentration, and it shows here how we greatly increased the soil moisture, which allowed them to grow grass to hold the disturbed soil together. And then Cornell did some studies, and Cornell's done a lot of work with our char over the years. Now they basically have been experimenting using our char as a concrete additive. So, I mean, when I say there's a lot of uses, there's a lot of different uses, because once you make carbon, it's the basis of life, and it can be used in a lot of different things. But they wanted to figure out, using extremely poor soil. So if you want to really spike the results, use poor soil. This soil had no nutrients in it. It got washed out every day. You can see in the control plot, they planted maize, corn, without fertilizer, without anything. There wasn't anything that grew. In the plot that used commercial fertilizer, they were able to get a yield. And so then to figure out what the biochar could do, they put 10% biochar by volume in the root zone, which is the most I ever recommend. I usually recommend 2% in the ag world, 5% at most. But anyway, all they did was add the biochar into the root zone, and we're binding up the nutrients, not letting them wash out. We're holding the water. And what they discovered was it was an 880% yield improvement over the fertilizer. So the impact biochar can have is not subtle. We do a lot of work in the US with cannabis and hemp and other specialty ags. And as a general rule, even at 2% by volume, we more than double their crop yields. Now, there's several different ways to go about putting the nutrients in the bags. We sell in the US to two of the largest national lawn care companies. And the first thing they do when they go to a client and they're working the char into the landscaping is they rip the bag open and they mix it with compost or put liquid fertilizer on it or not. But what we've done is we've patented a method that'll stop an algae bloom, but more importantly, it naturally loads the nutrients into the char. And then when you pull these socks out, you go put them into the landscaping, it puts the nutrients back where it should be in the environment. So we do have a patent on this system in the US. You basically just put socks out in the water, let the water flow through the bags in a passive system. And, it binds the nutrients and the algae disappears. You also put it in cages. In lakes where you don't have a danger of a log coming along and ripping it all to pieces, you don't need a cage. But in a river, we've put it in rivers where they put it in cages to remove nutrients. You see the sock photo at the right. It's simply a flow-through mesh sock. You can get it in any length. Gary can explain that. So you just put it in the water. Now, when you use it on the other end, you saw the first study. This is a study that was done by one of our landscaping clients in Chicago. This was urban trees. Down the old part of Chicago, Milwaukee Avenue, the urban trees just weren't growing well. So they put some of our char there, and you can see how it increased the root growth. I mean, that's what happens with the char. We greatly increase the root growth, which makes the plant that much more healthier. Same thing, we're also a combat disease. Now, we do not cure disease, but we make the plant so healthy it suppresses the disease and grows through it. All right. So this is an example of work done by one of our large national lawn care companies. And then, you see the control, you see compost, and you see a little bit of biochar suppress the disease. Now, there's been a lot of papers written in the US about this effect, but when you pull up those plants, they're still full of disease and the roots are still bad. So, that's just the way it is. And then we have different sizes for different applications. Like if you're in ag, we tried to match, what equipment you have. If you're going to use a manure spreader, you can use the larger chip. If you've got a center pivot, you can push the powder through it. All this the char itself is all the same. It's just whether we beat it down to a different size, whether you're putting it through an air seeder, whether you're putting it out with just a drill. Either way, So that's basically, I was just giving a high level view. That was the end of what I was wanting to share, and then wanting Gary to come on, but has he dropped off, Chrissy?
Yeah, it looks like we lost him, his connection. So hopefully he'll get back up again as soon as
well, I can, if you'd like, I can speak further. There were some things. There's been a lot of exciting stuff happen in Canada with our company recently. One of the things we're working with the government there. We're going to be putting a facility in the region of Peel. I believe that's the right word, right? In Mississauga.
That's right. Yeah.
And then we're also working to put facilities over toward Vancouver, and also butchered the pronunciations, but there you go. And so we're putting sites up in Canada, across the spectrum of locations, and we can use any waste wood. So it doesn't matter to us if it's a pine tree from Colorado or if it's the type of trees we find in Canada. We just turn wood into pure carbon, but we like to use the deadfall and the dead trees because that makes, we get carbon credits for all we do. And anybody that uses the product, if it's important politically, they're welcome to the carbon credits, because that's one day it's going to be worth a lot of money, I'm assuming, the carbon itself, the credits. But we do lock it up for a long time. There was just was published yesterday in Canada where we increased the yield on peas just at less than 1% of the biochar in the soil. We increased the yield on peas, was it 70%? And then barley over 200%. And that was in conjunction with, I believe, Lethbridge University and a private company in Canada, that Earth Renew, that basically puts our char inside their organic manure pellets. But if you'd like to ask some questions, or
for sure.
I was hoping,
We just got word from Gary, and there's a terrible storm going through his area right now, and he lost all power. So anybody in the Sarnia Petrolia area, just watch out.
all right. But
yeah,
I could speak to anything and everything. Now, well, Gary, let me just kind of get what Gary's up to, because Gary's doing some incredible work in that part of the world. And what he's doing is the water remediation, okay, where he's putting it in socks. And that's where he's focused. He's focused on taking the phosphorus out of the water bodies. He's provided me photos. I don't know if he was going to show them. We're just in one day, incredible results in some ponds around his part of the world.
Yeah, we actually have those posted on his website as well. So if anybody wants to visit gapontario.com, there are pictures on there.
Yeah, and so what I was going to try to add to this was basically, okay, you pay for the char in the sock, you removed your algae blooms, and you pulled the sock back out. We're the only technology where you're actually removing phosphorus from the water. There's a lot of competitive technologies out there where they'll throw copper out there, or they'll throw Phoslock, they'll throw chemicals out there, and it knocks the phosphorus to the bottom of the lake. But we're the only thing, when you pull the socks out, we're actually removing those nutrients from the ecosystem. And nitrogen will eventually evaporate, but the phosphorus bioaccumulates. So you've got to get the phosphorus out if you ever hope to clean up these algae blooms. And so once you pull the socks out, they're loaded with these nutrients. And then what I was trying to do was tell you, okay, then you can take it and go use it for a second cascading life and get full value there as well. So, in the US, as some examples, Fort Collins has been using our stuff now. We're going into the second year. They had two lakes, one really bad lake at 35 acres, drained a dairy for 4 decades. It had over 30 inches of muck built up at the bottom. And they put some of our socks in that lake, real passive. And that what finally caused them to treat it is the odor got so bad, nobody could, got a lot of odor complaints. But when they put the socks in there, it immediately stopped the odor. And then in a year, we cleared the water, and then the water started cycling. As we cleared the water, the muck started remineralizing. So after a year, they pulled those socks out, replaced them with new socks, and did measurements. And the muck had gone down over 15 inches in 1 year. So when they put new socks in, when they pulled those out at the end of this coming year, we would have removed over 4 decades of nutrient pollution in 2 years, and very, very, very cost effectively. Very cost effectively. The whole complete 2-year treatment is going to be a fraction of what they spent on any of those chemicals. Plus, they took the material when it came out and they went and worked it into the city landscaping where things weren't growing well, and those nutrients were reintroduced into the landscaping system, and then those plants just blossomed and really started growing well. So those are the kind of things that Gary's working on as well. I just didn't want to, I don't want to speak to his customer names without his permission, but in the US, we've done a lot. Now, Gary has been involved in Thames River testing. We've been involved with that as well. But we're extremely cost effective on removing the nutrients from the water. And then you do the cascading use. If you're a government agency, and if you're listening to this, you can actually resell the char. We have customers that would actually buy that char. And that's what we're bidding now on some massive projects in the US, where they're talking about, cleaning up lakes that are hundreds of square miles. And then we can basically, resell that carbon when it comes out to our landscaping customers and to other avenues. So you could literally use this product. I don't want to say do it for free because you'll hold me to it, but if you do your business right, you could do it extremely cost effectively.
Wow, great information. We have a couple questions here. What incentives are in place pushing farmers to reduce phosphorus pollution?
I don't know your rules in Canada. In the US, I'll give you one example. If you're a developer, and if you're going to develop in I think it's in Virginia, in those river valleys, you have to pay like over $15,000 for phosphorus credits, and then we can remove that phosphorus for $50. So somewhere along the way, you can basically, we can do it a whole lot cheaper than you having to buy phosphorus credits for a development. That's in the US. I don't know the rules in Canada. I would imagine with your environmental focus, you probably even have better situations than that.
Right, yeah.
Chrissy, can you hear me on your speakerphone?
Yep, actually, Gary's joining us by phone now.
Yeah, I've got a really nasty thunderstorm went through and put the hydro out. To answer that question, we're working closely with the Ontario government. Mr. Hardiman's office has some grants out there that are available. So I guess the best I could answer that would be feel free to contact me. All the information's on the website, and I'll work with you individually.
That's great. All right, so now we have you back both again. Can you speak more on any Canadian tests that have been done with biochar now? That's the next question.
We've done 2 different research and development, mainly in the infancy stage of it. We're getting good results. I've got Lake Roslyn near Durham. We haven't got the final tests on that. No negative reports. Last year, we started testing in a pond on a golf course. We had orders for 50 bags come in the spring because it was doing quite well. I've got a local pond that I'm doing testing on, and any given day, there's some movement in one end and little or no movement in the other end. Seems to act best when there's water movement. So So those are the tests that we're working with. We've also got soil amendment going on with biochar now, and just as recent as today, there was an announcement released by another company that is very, very favorable, and I'll be putting that on the website when I get permission to. It's very new.
Awesome. Good.
But
Okay.
it is using biochar now. So, and you know what? You go ahead, James, and say what you want on that.
Well, I did speak broadly to it before you got back on. I was trying to kill time. You left me hanging.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry for repeating anything.
No, that's all good. We have another question here. Do you have any experience with biochar on organic farms?
Yes. In fact, we are certified organic in the US and in Canada. We've got all those certifications on organics.
Oh, that's great.
And just so you know, the testing that was just reported, where it was a 70% increase in peas and over 200% increase in barley, was organic farms. But it's the press release went out. I picked it up because the company that put it out is a public company. So I picked it up off the wire. I know it's out there. I don't know when they go around and start running articles on it, but it is out there on the wire for the financial industry.
I checked it this morning, James, and it's on their website.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
But yeah, that was organic. That was actually organic grown crops in that study.
Yes.
Well, that's good. Another question, is there any use on livestock farms?
Yes, we are approved as an organic animal feed additive in the US. We have done work in Canada as well, but I can just speak to the US right now. We are approved as an animal feed additive. We're working with major corporations as we speak, and we've got a lot of preliminary data along those lines, but things are looking great. I've been trying to sell the stuff we can increase weight gain in a feedlot and things like that, but we're not allowed to use those things. In the US, we got approved, but the pharmaceutical industry kind of hamstrung us a little bit on the approvals and what we can say in marketing. But come to find out, the most important thing we do is bind all the toxins in the feed, because I didn't realize that. I'm not in the animal industry, but most of the feed and storage has toxins. And now, like in Iowa, we had this massive, whatever they call this, hurricane without water, derecho or whatever they called it. It knocked down all the grain, and so now you've got natural toxins that'll start growing on it, which the char can remediate that situation. But we do have formal USDA approval in the US as an organic animal feed additive.
Oh, that's good. Do you have anything to add, Gary?
Yeah, the animal manure, it can be used for a very successful odor suppression.
So do you mean in like lagoons, or how is that used?
Mainly in dry matter, if I'm correct on that, I believe.
Oh, interesting. So in farms that are close to cities, is that where you're seeing that used?
Okay. At this point, I'm looking for research and development properties to do that.
Oh,
It's
awesome.
It's happened in other areas.
Yeah, that's one of the uses in the US. And also we bind all odors. So like in the US, if you're doing an indoor cannabis grow, you're not allowed to stink. So they use us as filters, to filter the odor at the air circulating.
I've got another really interesting use that's just cropped up too, is as a filtration in, a microbrewery.
Oh, okay. Well, and how is that used in the microbrewery?
It's used to take out some of the odor and the taste that's not wanted. They're dealing with a champagne right now, and that's very much in its infancy too. But I guess I just pointed that out to let you know that biochar is something that's got an endless amount of uses.
Right. Yeah. And James mentioned while you were gone, your Thames River project. Can you speak about that a little bit?
Sure. So I'm very much involved in PRC, we call it. So it's a Thames River phosphorus reduction collaboration, and they have a website. You can see what we've used on there. Right now, we're just in the midst of collecting all the data, and it will be going out sometime in September with a conference, probably virtual at this point. It could be October. I may be wrong on that. But our data is being collected at this point. So I really...
Oh, that's excellent.
I guess I can't speak to a lot of details on it.
Right. And how is it set up in the river? Like, is it, specific places in one place? How is that, how does that work?
James?
Yeah, no, it's just the socks as we demonstrated.
Yeah.
You put it in a mesh sock, and as the water flows through, it binds the nutrients. Like Gary was speaking, where it doesn't have flow, it seems to take longer. Well, I mean, because we're not like a magnet. We're not going to pull it out of the water from a foot away. The water has to come in contact with the carbon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah. And do you have any new ongoing projects right now that would be interesting to the audience?
Sure. I've got one that I'm exploring with another couple of gentlemen, another couple of companies that we're working with a major company in southwestern Ontario that has all sorts of odor issues, and they want to get into producing a pellet type fertilizer or marketable soil. So that's coming up, and I'll keep that abreast on my website and social media, right, Chrissy?
That's right. You're learning. He can be taught. Get this excellent information out there.
So for those out there wondering about the inside joke, Chrissy is my website host, and she's talking an old dog into new tricks.
That's right. And we're doing good, one step at a time. If only your power would stay on.
No kidding.
I just like going to visit your farm.
Thank you.
It's beautiful. Yeah. All right. So any more remarks, any kind of closing parting things you want to say?
I think I pretty much summed it up as to where I'm at and what I'm trying to accomplish.
Awesome. James?
I guess I would just say in parting that I would love to have phone calls, and I'll look in my toolbox, see what I can find for you. And if I can't find something, I've got a guy like James and several other companies that I deal with that will help me.
Yeah. And, we will be, as I said, locating up there once this virus passes. In fact, I got a text today from the government people up there, and they're ready to move forward as soon as, everything calms down, and you actually allow Americans back in.
Someday.
That's it. Anyway, but no, I appreciate your time, Chrissy, and appreciate anybody in your audience. If they do have any questions, yes, please reach out to Gary, and if he can't answer it, I'll be happy to provide the answer to him.
That's awesome. I was saying a little bit earlier before we started live that we did a demo yesterday with Bond Consulting, and they are all about getting tax credits for research and development for farmers. So I can really see some synergy here. So if any farmers out there are interested in, trying this out and getting some tax credits, then I can see that would be a good idea.
And the beautiful thing about it, our product, like I said, has a 17,000 year half-life in the soil. So as you'll see from Gary and others, it's going to be coming in through compost pellets or manure pellets or stuff, and you can literally do what you're doing now, just switch brands and build up the carbon over time and, you know, have permanent improvement to your land.
Right. And what was that, Gary, that you were going to say?
I think James got it covered.
Okay. Very good. All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. And we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye now.
Have a great day.